Welcome back everybody, I'm Nick930, and to celebrate recently passing the 300,000 subscriber milestone on YouTube, I wanted to treat you all to a tour of my current edit, streaming, and gaming setup. Now, my setup is constantly evolving with new parts, peripherals, consoles, and hardware coming and going all the time. But this past month, I've made some pretty major upgrades to my main workspace that have completely transformed the room. And I thought it would be fun to just give you guys a behind the scenes look at it all, and maybe give you ideas for how you can upgrade your own setup with links for each item listed in the description. But before we get started, I do want to give a big shout out to AMD, Thrustmaster, and Corsair, who have all helped contribute to these impressive setups. Alright, so to kick this tour off, let's start with the main desk. This is where I do a lot of my gaming, browsing, and occasional streaming. This space has received quite a big upgrade the past few weeks, with a new big screen 4K panel, lights, mounts, and of course, this absolute behemoth of a gaming machine. This PC build uses an Asus ROG Strix Z490E motherboard with an Intel i9-10900KF processor chip, cooled by Corsair's newest Elite Capellix H1150i AIO, along with 2 sticks of Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro DDR4 3200MHz DRAM for a total of 32GB of memory, and room to upgrade if I ever feel the need. Then of course we have this monster, NVIDIA's latest RTX 3090 Founders Edition, which was easily the hardest item to get a hold of. To help power it all is a fully modular Corsair HX850 power supply, which is a must considering these newer GPUs recommend at least 750 watts to power efficiently. For storage, I have a Samsung Evo 970 M.2, a secondary SanDisk Extreme Pro SSD for my games, and an additional 16 terabytes of hard drive space to store gameplay footage and additional game installations. All of this is installed into a gigantic Cooler Master Cosmos C700P tower that not only offers some great cooling and customization options, but also features these pretty slick LEDs that I've set to static dark blue, matching the Corsair RAM, water cooler, peripherals, and the LED light strips I have hidden throughout. This PC is an absolute monster and is without a doubt the most powerful build I've ever pieced together, which is really saying something considering my previous PC build that's sitting right next to it. For this secondary build, I'm using an Asus ROG Strix Z370H with an Intel i7-8700K and a Corsair Hydro Series H100i V2 AIO for cooling. For RAM, I'm using 4 sticks of G-Skill Trident Z Series DDR4 3200MHz, topping off at 32 gigs, and for the GPU, I'm using the RTX 2080 Ti, powered by a Corsair RM650X Gold. This build will serve as a dedicated streaming PC off to the side, and thanks to the Elgato 4K 60 Pro PCI card installed down here, I'll be able to deliver higher quality content without having to sacrifice my gaming performance like I was dealing with before. Now back up top on the desk itself, I also have my laptop. This is the Asus ROG Strix Scar 2, which sports a 17-inch 144Hz panel, an Intel i7-8750H chip, an RTX 2070 graphics processor, and 16GB of DDR4 RAM. To get it floating off to the side like this, I have the laptop sitting on 2 things, a PC Cooler 17-inch cooling pad, and a Vivo desk mount stand that lets me spin the whole setup off to the side and clear up a bit more space. Then of course we have the elephant in the room, this gigantic monitor which has become my main computer panel. This is the Asus ROG Swift PG43UQ. It's a 43-inch 4K panel with 144Hz refresh rate, HDR 1000, and is G-Sync compatible. Off to the side, I have one of my absolute favorite monitors, the Asus ROG Swift PG279Q. This is easily one of the best monitors I've ever purchased. It's a 27-inch 1440p display capable of 165Hz with its own native G-Sync processor. Below it, you'll see I have a pretty interesting keyboard setup going on here. The main keyboard that I've been using for a while now is the Logitech G910, which features cherry brown mechanical keys and includes a bunch of extra G keys that I've programmed to do things like record and take screenshots. This second keyboard is Corsair's brand new K60 RGB Pro that features these really smooth cherry viola switches that have a nice tactile yet silent travel to them. To keep it from eating up the last bit of space on my desk, I've got it mounted on a metal laptop mount, which is then attached to a similar adjustable monitor arm that I'm using for my 1440p panel. And I think the end result looks pretty clean. Next, we have the mice. For my main build, I'm using a G502 Lightspeed, which I generally prefer because of its ergonomic claw grip design. Also have a G900 for my laptop, and I'm also testing out Corsair's new Qatar Pro Wireless. That isn't quite as flashy as the other mice, but still sports a nice 10,000 dpi optical sensor and a surprisingly long battery life considering it only uses a single AA battery. For sound, I either use a pair of Creative speakers or my wireless SteelSeriesH headphones that feature great sound quality without any of the messy wires. The rest of this desk is much more streamer oriented. First, there's the Elgato Stream Deck, which is synced to software on my streaming PC and makes accessing scene transitions and other effects much simpler and efficient. Connected to it are two Elgato key lights, which provide plenty of light when I do in-person product reviews and also help when I'm trying to key out the background with a green screen. In between the lights, I have a mount for my camera, a Lumix G7 mirrorless that I'm using to capture most of this footage. And over here, we have the now suspended Elgato Wave 3 microphone that, as I mentioned in my microphone comparison video earlier this year, features some solid audio quality along with a lot of handy digital mixer settings using its Wavelength software. All of these devices are mounted using Elgato's master mounts that are nice low-profile mounting options that can be customized easily using the flex kits to keep my hardware from blocking my screen. And this little guy is the Vive wireless sensor, which, along with these two mounted Vive base stations, allow me to play VR content easily without getting tangled up in wires like before. So, taking a step back, I think the end result is a pretty solid looking build. There's not too much weight on the desk itself, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Though, in the future, I'm definitely going to get a much longer desk, probably bolted to the wall and get my computers off of the ground. And I'll probably look into getting bigger, higher quality speakers, and maybe mounting them onto the wall too. Off to the side here, we have a pretty basic shelf I picked up from Target to help declutter the room. And this is where I store various peripherals like the Vive, the original Xbox Elite controller, and the Thrustmaster Airbus joystick I use for flight games, along with a few cool LEGO builds and figurines of Crash Bandicoot. But the main reason I put the shelf here is more for my pet bird Zazu, who is pretty much always hanging around me when I record anything, either standing on his perch here or just sitting on my shoulder. And if you tune into my Twitch channel while I'm streaming, you'll more than likely see him hanging out with me. Next, let's take a trip to the other side of the room. Thanks to the folks over at AMD, this side of the room has become equally insane. And I even tried to sort of mirror it using the same desk and foam pad layout, only with red LEDs instead, to get this sort of parallel universe aesthetic going. If you've caught my sponsored AMD content in the past, you'll already be familiar with this setup I have over here. This machine is where I do all my intensive editing and rendering, and also record all of my footage for games that take advantage of AMD's own tech. So, games like Ghost Recon Breakpoint, Gears 5, Borderlands 3, and Horizon Zero Dawn all were tested using this build. The motherboard is an Asus ROG Crosshair 8 Hero X570 with a Ryzen 9 3900X 12-core CPU, which is being cooled by a custom EK Waterblock liquid cooling loop. For RAM, I'm using 32GB of Kingston HyperX Predator DDR4 memory, and for the GPU, I actually swapped between several different cards, including the Radeon 7, the 5700 XT, and the 5600 XT. For storage, this PC uses a Corsair MP600 2TB NVMe SSD, and a massive Seagate 10TB HDD to store thousands of gigs of video files for edits and rendering. All this is powered by an Asus ROG Thor 850W PSU, and installed into an open Regiontech Pay-In full-size ATX case, making it really easy to swap out components for benchmarking purposes. On the desktop surface, things are a bit cleaner than with my other desk. Currently I only have one display here, a big 32-inch Asus ROG XG32VQ FreeSync monitor, which, like my other Asus panels, looks great and runs really smooth, and a bunch of nice Asus peripherals along with it, including another cherry brown mechanical keyboard and the Spatha L701 that features a bunch of programmable keys and has this nice vertical charging mount. For sound, I have a similar configuration as before. There's a set of stereo speakers for general work, and the Asus ROG Strix Fusion 700 headset that not only sounds great, but also ties into Asus's RGB software so that everything glows red simultaneously. Hanging off to the side here is my old microphone configuration, a basic boom arm with the tried and true Blue Yeti attached to it, along with a pop filter and shock mount to help improve its audio quality. This setup, while not quite as powerful as my latest build, is still an absolute beast of a machine, and renders out content incredibly fast. making it my go-to for all my editing projects. And I'm excited to see what AMD's newly announced Zen 3 and Big Navi are able to do later this year. Finally, to wrap up this room, I have a few other shelves where I store my green screen, some more LEGO sets and figurines, and a pair of Thrustmaster wheels, the T300 RS and the T80 Ferrari 488 GTB, both of which I plan on doing a comparison video for in the future. So that's my main studio covered. Now let's take a quick look at where I record all my console stuff. The main room, where we just hang out and watch TV typically, is where I keep the lead console platforms. Here we have the Xbox One X Scorpio Edition, the PlayStation 4 Pro, and the Nintendo Switch. These are then hooked up to a Yamaha receiver and then routed to my main display, the Sony XBR 900E 55-inch. I also have a modified PlayStation Classic setup as well, though I don't really use it ever for recording and just play around with it for fun. Finally, downstairs we have what I call the console graveyard. This is where old consoles come to rest and where I do a lot of recording for classic games. I've got two more big shelves with lots of extra controllers, cables, and all my old physical games, along with some cheap speakers I picked up from Best Buy to connect to another Yamaha receiver. Connected to the receiver, I have an Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 Slim, and an original launch PS4, along with a PS2, GameCube, and original Xbox that I hook up whenever I need to. And then all of this is outputted on my old 47-inch LG 1080p display that, despite its age, still produces a pretty decent image. And that pretty much wraps up the tour. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out. The main PC build looks impressive now, and the overall performance is better than I had anticipated, which I'll expand upon more when I do my graphics card comparison. Though even so, there's definitely room for improvement here. I eventually want to get everything into the same room to help streamline the process more. Probably get an AV shelf to stack all the consoles neatly and make recording from them less of a hassle. And I also want to improve my audio capabilities down the line, with better speakers and maybe even an audio mixer at some point. But until then, what do you guys think? And what suggestions do you have to make the setup even better? Let me know in the comments section. Also want to give a shout out to Corsair, Thrustmaster, and AMD, who have all contributed to help make this crazy setup more impressive. You can find links to all the hardware I've detailed today in the description below. And of course, I also want to thank you guys for supporting me so far and helping me reach this incredible milestone. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel for all sorts of new content, including detailed reviews of new games, in-depth direct comparisons, and full-length documentaries where I cover the history of the biggest games in the industry. You can also follow me on Twitter and Facebook for more up-to-the-hour updates. And you can even catch me live on Twitch, where you can talk directly to me and Zazu while we play both new and classic games alike. And of course, be sure to stay tuned to this channel for more video content posted every week.